extremely important awareness to have about people. All right? Now we can definitely get very confused, but we have to be able to see that in the inside of human beings there is these tremendous powers. Okay? Even when they're covered over for a long period of time, they're never gone. They're always there. Okay. So here's the question that I pose for you. Which is stronger, the soul or the Yetzer Hara? So the soul. How many people vote for the soul? The soul is very powerful. So how does the Yetzer Hara, when we have this much clarity and wisdom within us, how does it work? The dynamics of the struggle. How does the Yetzer Hara fool us? How can you get us to not see the illusion for what it is, illusion? Right? Any thoughts on that? Yeah.
There's one thinking, and I forget where it comes from. It says that the Yetzer Hara not only stands in front of you and tries to lure you off the right path, but it stands behind you and whispers that you're not such a good person. And since you've already made mistakes, you really shouldn't even try anymore. And that's the problem, is it's got you in that kind of, attack.
Right. Man. Very impressive. I like that.
I think the soul is the ultimate goal, but I think the Yetzer Hara is very powerful. Why do we have so many rules and laws to guide us away from that?
Yeah.
So I think it's a very, very powerful force in that, there's a constant dynamic and tension between the two.
Definitely. I mean, there's an equal match. I would like to suggest, they say sometimes don't work hard, work smart, right? I like to suggest the Yetzer Hara lives by that axiom. Okay, yeah.
I think maybe you taught me that it tries to trick you into thinking that the bad is really good.
Okay, so that's a little bit like what Greg was saying. Yeah.
I think with children, it seems to me, from my experience, that you can see much more of the soul and less of the Yetzer Hara, and you can appeal more to the soul, and they want to do what's right. They're less complicated.
They are less
than we are
complicated.
as we get older.
Yes, they definitely are. Children are less complicated. And what that does help them with, they have big Yetzer Haras in a certain way. I mean, they get lost in stuff very easily, but they're much better. They generally recover much quicker also. They're kind of in and out, whereas human beings have a way of perpetuating their misery. Older human beings, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I don't know how to put it into words, but somehow the soul is a spiritual pull, whereas the Yetzer Hara, I think, is more a physical. Like, we're in this physical world, and physical pulls seem to be a lot to do with.
It's interesting. It's interesting. In the Ramchal and Derech Hashem, he distinguishes very obviously between the Yetzer Hara and the body. We don't equate the two. The body is in and of itself not a problem. The Yetzer Hara, in other words,
I was not meaning so much body, but just the physical reality that we see is usually what, the apple, whatever.
Right.
The fruit was a visual thing.
Right.
It was what we see around us.
Right. So the Yetzer Hara, in terms of physicality, how I would define it is the Yetzer Hara's job is to make physicality an end as opposed to a means, right? Which is a very big concept in Judaism. There's a physical world which is meant to lead us beyond the physical world to what's behind the physical world, which is obviously ultimately the Creator Himself. The Yetzer Hara wants us to stop with the physical and uncouple the physical from the spiritual, which is the very definition of death, and the very definition of idolatry as well. Right? So you're right. I want to talk a little bit more about the tactic, though. You see, let me ask you a question. Anybody here compete in a sport or in anything? You guys compete? No? Not sure? Right. Anybody here never compete? Who here forgot how to raise their hand? So let me ask you a question. What is the single best way to ensure that you will win a competition?
Practice.
It's good, practice is good, but the other team practices also. Yeah,
Eliminate your opponent.
eliminate your opponent. When?
Before the competition.
That's right. Does anyone remember Tanya Harding?
Oh, yes.
Okay. You guys all remember Tanya Harding, right? I call this the Tanya Harding strategy. It's very not nice, very immoral, but brilliant. I mean, it is absolutely the best way to ensure that you will win a competition. Make sure the opponent doesn't even show up, right? You gotta admit, there's no more shit. You can practice, but the other team practices. They may practice more. They may be more naturally talented also. They may not have to practice as much. Yeah.
One, that defeats the whole purpose of sports, and two, when I was playing football,
Yeah.
that expression, any given Sunday, where
Yeah.
you every single thing correct
Yeah.
and lose.
You could lose anyway. That's right. That's why the only way to really ensure you're going to win is make sure the other team doesn't show up. It does defeat the purpose of sports, you're right. But the Yetzer Hara maybe isn't so interested in being sportsmanlike. I believe that the Yetzer Hara's main tactic is to make sure that you don't even show up. And I think Greg really hit it on the nail. Okay? See, what the Yetzer Hara likes to do is it likes to get us discouraged. Okay? It likes to put us into a bad state of mind. And that's what Greg was pointing at. Okay? It wants us to get depressed. It wants us to feel insecure. It wants us to feel angry. It wants us to feel hopeless. Right? It wants us to feel overwhelmed. It wants us to be miyayesh. You know what miyayesh means? It wants us to get, when you're miyayesh, it means you just give up. Right? That is the Yetzer Hara's #1 technique. Okay? To bring us down spiritually, to make sure that we are in a low state of mind, in a low state of consciousness. Okay? And that happens to us. You have to admit, it happens to us. You know, we're walking around and all of a sudden our thinking kind of goes off. We don't even know it. And before we know it, we're caught up in something and we're not feeling as good as we were 10 minutes ago. Or maybe something really obvious happens and we get caught up in it. And we're upset. Okay, we're upset, we're discouraged, we're depressed, whatever it might be. Okay? The Yetzer Hara understands when it gets us there, okay, we're in trouble. We're in trouble because we're not leveraged anymore. We don't have power. Okay, we don't have our resources to bring to bear in life when our state of consciousness is down. Okay, so we go up, we go down. We all have this tendency to do that. So the question is, what's the piece that we have a say in? Okay, where do we blow it? Okay, here's where we blow it. We try to think about our situations and act in those situations while we're in a low state of mind. Okay? I'll say it very simply. This is the essence of what I'm trying to say tonight. We have far too much respect, generally speaking, for the facts and the issues, and far too little respect for the feeling that we are in. And this is where we get thrown off. We tend to go right to the issue. We tend to go right into the analysis, right into the solution, right into the ups and downs and the ins and outs. And we, generally speaking, are oftentimes, unless we really understand this, we generally are pretty clueless as to how we're doing in life. Where are we living life from, as opposed to what are we looking at? Do people know what I'm talking about here? I'll explain this a little bit. Does this make sense? I'm suggesting to you that this is a very powerful direction to look in. Okay? If you want to start tilting the balance a little bit in terms of the battle with the Yetzer Hara and your creativity, this is a key element. Looking at what's the feeling I'm living in, as opposed to what am I looking at? What's the issue that I'm looking at? Okay, now the reason for this is, okay, and by the way, I wanted to point out, I missed this, but there's many sources to talk about what Greg mentioned, what I mentioned in terms of depression going down. I found something recently, I run into this all the time, Rabbi Nachman Breslov. He writes the following. He says, depression is a terrible